So the other thing that I noticed is you have a podcast called the Global Gambit. So can you tell our audience a little bit more about your podcast and then how you connected into spaces? If you know, I don't
Yeah, sure.
know, segue.
Um, yeah, I mean, so I think that my journey with geopolitics, international relations, current affairs, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
is pretty I've been educated mainly in the West, but I've done my best to try and balance that by reading alternative sources and also living in other parts of the world. I've lived across Africa a few times and Eastern Europe and Russia. So not very long, but I've still tried to expose myself to different perspectives and cultures because I think it's incredibly important to do that if you truly want to say you have a well-rounded. And I'm not saying that I even do. You can always learn more, which is why I entertain all forms of opinion as long as it's expressed relatively reasonably and respectfully. When it comes to the podcast, I started that this year. It's just over 6 months old, and it's gone very well. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit of a procrastinator. And I probably could have started this years ago and been much more, I don't know, established.
Mhm.
I could have probably been ahead of the curve instead of always catching up on it. But the podcast was a initially a passion project. Basically, I was very active on Clubhouse before Twitter Spaces. Clubhouse is the original social audio app, and I really liked the ease, but also influence that you can, well, not have, but you can experience the reach and impact you may be able to have of audio because it's easier than this. I've had to make sure I don't look like a basket case for your show and listeners, but equally, we can convey so much interesting information via audio than we do just through written form. So I just liked the concept, and I became a little bit addicted with Clubhouse. And then we ran a room which was very, very large on the Afghan pullout last year. And I began to see the value and potential significance, if done well,
Yeah.
of running spaces, holding conversations. And so I began to explore hosting more specific conversations with a guest or a group of people in like a panel, similar to what Mario has been doing in his own way, but on Clubhouse and in the political or whatever, topical theme, policy theme. And then Ukraine happened. And when Russia invaded on February 24th, that was a big day for many people. I cannot see my grandparents now because they cannot leave the country. I mean, they're over 90, but so the war in Ukraine
They
has
asked where
been.
they located. Are they
They're just
still?
yeah, they're in academy town, so they're where Sergey grew up basically. I saw them about 4 years ago probably, and both of them were, I guess you would say, state employees. I think they work for the government. My grandfather Vladimir was a statistician. Well, he still does work. I mean, he's 93 and he still does something to keep his mind going because he's like my father. He likes to keep himself busy. I mean, it's nice to indulge and do sod all, but yeah, no, they still do something. So anyway, um, when that happened, we opened a room. You call them rooms on Clubhouse. So we opened a space and we ran it for 24/7 hour, like non-stop, because spaces have a limitation on how long you can run them. We ran them indefinitely. We ran it just for 105 days straight.
Mhm.
And we had, I mean, since then, Musk and now Mario have overtaken the record that I had made, which was 1.5 million people over those 105 days. So it was at the
Wow,
time
that's
the
amazing.
longest running and largest room on social audio. But
I didn't know that. That's amazing. That's very
well,
cool.
then you get, the owner of Clubhouse of Twitter coming in, and obviously it's going to, blow up. But no, I mean, we didn't do it for that. We did it because the situation was really obviously dire, and not going into whether you line with one side or another, just purely for the global impact it had on everybody.
Yes.
We ran this room, and we were a bit like what Mario again has been doing. Is we were having media people in the room listening. We had all sorts of people. We actually helped to get about 500, 600 people out of the country in the first few days when the Russian invasion was at its most intense.
Mhm.
Um, we managed to get about 500-600 people out of the Ukraine into Romania via some buses. We managed to, because someone was listening in the audience, that said, oh, I live in X and Y Z town near where these people, because someone was coming up on stage, obviously in a confidential identity thing, but like speaking, saying, hey, we're on the border with you, Romania, we're in trouble. We feel, we were living in Kharkiv, and we've had to flee to the southwest where it's safer. So we actually did some tangible humanitarian, limited. I'm not saying we changed the world, but we did something, and we raised about.
They needed help. So yeah.
No, for sure. And I think we raised, I can't remember the figure. I think it was about 15,000 pounds or something. But we raised a lot of money and put that towards different humanitarian things. So the space was, yeah. But anyway, I mean, Clubhouse just I'm not going to go into Clubhouse. It's been frustrating, and I could see the potential more with Twitter. So I shifted to Twitter, and since then I've been hosting spaces, every other week. I'm not a big account. I've never used Twitter up until January of this year. I had sent 83 tweets and had 20 followers. Now
Oh.
it's yeah. I'd never used Twitter. I didn't. I don't know. As you can probably tell, I go on a bit and can't fit 150 characters of what I want to say. So, but then Spaces came along, and I was like, oh, well, I actually enjoy this, and I can convey what I want to say much easier.
I really like Spaces too. It's just a little glitchy. Hopefully they'll work that out. Like when I tried to run a Spaces, it would all of a sudden just shut down, or it wouldn't bring it just would get glitchy. I don't know if you experienced that. But
Oh, it's terrible. Twitter Spaces is frankly very well, it's primitive. I mean, Clubhouse is an entire. So for people who are only used to Twitter Spaces, I'm comparing it to Clubhouse because I used that for more than about 8 months before I started really entertaining Twitter Spaces. And Clubhouse is all about social audio. It's all about, so everything is function. Whilst Twitter Spaces is an add-on, and so it's very sparse of features. It's it's basic, and I think there's a lot more we could do with it.
mm.
I think yeah, I mean, and what happened over the weekend with Musk's appearance in the other space, rendering the entire thing basically unusable for most of the communities, it's fixed now. But yeah, but no, I like Twitter Spaces, and it's great
Yeah,
to.
I do too. I mean, these discussions, because I kind of came across Mario's, I was trying to understand the FTX, and it just, because you had the crypto Wall Street nerds throwing out all their terms. If you're a layperson to that, you don't know what they're saying. I was like, what does this mean? Because it definitely had a global international
Oh,
impact.
so you discovered at the same time as me through the
At the
FT.
same time as you, and then
Oh,
and
okay.
then I think what our audience is probably, that tuned in because they thought we were gonna, which we will get to later, Ukraine a little bit. They heard us sparring a bit, but you mostly sparred with Kim.
Yeah.
I said my piece a couple of times, but kept it brief. You were a host, so you had more to say.